Back of the Times, it says Fury at drug cheat reprieve. Back of the Guardian, a mess years in the making. And back of the Mail, Olympic sprint dead after drug scandal shame. Now, Kamila Valieva, she can compete against the Winter Games in the Winter Games after sport's highest court ruled exceptional circumstances meant that the 15-year-old Russian figure skater should not be provisionally suspended for a failed drug test, which sounds to me bizarre, absolutely bonkers. Joining us now for more on this, winter sports correspondent Michael Waydock is with us. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Morning, Michael.
Good morning to you. Well, we've got a little bit of a development on this story in the last half an hour or so, actually, because the International Olympic Committee have just held one of their daily briefings. And Dennis Oswald, who is the chair of the International Olympic Committee's Disciplinary Commission, has been taking some questions after the formal briefing. And he has revealed in that sort of informal Q&A, if you like, that part of Kamila Valieva's defense is that there was some kind of contamination from a product that her grandfather was taking. So you'll remember, of course, that the substance that she has failed this drugs test on was a drug that is usually used for the treatment of angina. And we were all wondering, of course, why a 15-year-old girl was taking a drug for angina. It's not a condition which is usually found in teenage girls. And as I said, in the last half an hour, in this informal Q&A, Dennis Oswald of the IOC has said that her defense now is based on the contamination from a product that her grandfather was taking. And that is why this case has reached the Court of Arbitration for Sport, because they weren't making a ruling yesterday on whether this drug had been administered, whether it had been taken. They weren't making a ruling on the history of Russia and doping in the Olympic Games. They were making a ruling on whether her suspension should stand or not. And that's why they had no other option but to let her come back into the Games and compete in the individual programme today.
Michael, just give our listeners, so if anyone's new to this and they don't know what she, how good she is, essentially, just tell us. So she's 15 years old, which for me, is the whole scandal that she is caught up in at the moment is very sad for a start for a 15-year-old to be involved in it. And you wonder what kind of effect it's going to have on her moving forward. But she is very good, isn't she?
She's the best, quite simply the best. I mean, already in these games, she's been part of the ROC team, the Russian Olympic Committee team that have picked up the team gold. In doing that, she scored over 90 points for the first time ever at an Olympic Games in the short program. She's the first female to land a quad jump. And yeah, she is just quite simply the standout athlete. She is the hot favorite to win the gold medal in this individual event, which starts today. But she failed this drugs test, which was taken at the Russian Championships on Christmas Day. The result of that did not come to light until the 8th of February, which was after that team event had taken place. And it's ended up in one real hot mess, hasn't it? Because the IOC, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, the World Anti-Doping, Russia Anti-Doping, don't seem to have been able to agree on the way forward. And as you quite rightly say, Laura, at the centre of this is a 15-year-old girl, is a vulnerable girl. And actually the ruling that was made yesterday made specific reference to that. And, you know, the phrase used was irreparable damage. And that's why she's been allowed to compete, because as a 15-year-old, as a minor, it's not necessarily a suspension or a ban that would be the punishment if she's found guilty of this. So we're kind of in that situation, if you like, where she's innocent until proven guilty. So the reason she's being allowed to carry on and compete in the games, and I understand why everyone is saying, you know, if you failed a drugs test, you should be straight out. But it's not quite as simple as that, because even if she has failed that drugs test, there might be reasons behind it. And there might also be reasons why that wouldn't necessarily mean that she would be kicked out of the games and not allowed to compete.
What could the ramifications be, though? Because if they do eventually find her guilty, are we talking about stripping medals? Obviously, Russia again, unfortunately, being caught up in another doping kind of scandal. I mean, what happens? What could the outcome be?
Well, the first thing to say about that is the outcome might take some time to work its way through the system. I referenced the Team GB bobsleigh team that were 5th in Sochi in 2014 and eventually got bronze medals after the 2 Russian crews were kicked out 5 years later.
Wow.
I mentioned also this morning CJ Uja, who's a British sprinter, part of the silver medal winning 4x4 at the Summer Games in Tokyo. A positive test has come to light. That one is still ongoing. Now, it could be that Russia gets stripped of their medals from the team event. It could be, if she was to win a medal in the individual event, that she would get stripped of that and people will be upgraded. They will miss, of course, their medal moment at the Games. And the IOC said yesterday they will hold no kind of formal medal ceremonies for this event in the event of Kamila Valieva picking up an individual medal as well. So you have to feel sorry for the other competitors. There's 24, including Natasha Mackay from Team GB, that are going in this individual competition. And if Kamila Valieva ends up in a podium position, they will not get that moment where they get to step up onto a podium and potentially hear an anthem, see their flag, pick up their posy of flowers, etc.
Is she on the ice at 10 a.m. this morning? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This morning, the short program begins. So it will take place over the next couple of days.
Michael, there's a good piece by Sean Ingle actually back of the Guardian this morning, and he talks about his introduction to his piece. He says, to paraphrase Mario Balotelli, "Why is it always them?" References the corruption in Russia in 2014 in Sochi, and then goes on to say what else has been going on since then. And it's a very good point that. I don't want to say anything that's going to get me in trouble, but it is always them, isn't it? Why does this keep happening? Why does it keep being allowed to happen as well?
Well, the IOC seem to be in some kind of awe to Russia and Thomas Bach to Vladimir Putin, to be honest with you. And they could have been much stronger in the same way the International Paralympic Committee have been much stronger, but they have completely fudged the issue because Russia don't compete as Russia at the Olympic Games. They compete as the Russian Olympic Committee. They're not allowed to compete under their own flag. They're not allowed to have their anthem. And the history of that is that they were saying they didn't want to expel athletes that were Russian, but didn't compete inside the Russian system. But that kind of seems to have been lost in the process. So they've sent a huge team again here. And as you say, the McLaren report, which looked at what was happening in Sochi when they hosted the Winter Games in 2014, when there was a cover-up there, where there was tampering with drugs tests. And it is time and time again. And, if the IOC had been stronger and had a stronger position on this in the same way that the IPC did, the International Paralympic Committee, then, I think banning Russia outright from 1 or 2 editions of the Games would maybe be the only way forward.
Okay, Michael. Lovely to speak
Thanks,
to you.
Michael.
I'm sure we'll be checking in with you a lot over the next few days. And have a lovely day. We'll check in about this 10 a.m. as well when Camilla's on the ice later on.
Talk Sport Breakfast with Laura Woods. Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the Talk Sport app and on your smart speaker. Talk Sport.